Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Juan Londoño. Today we are going to talk about technology and we're going to ask a question. What have we lost or what are we losing for everything that we have gained? Now what that question means, if it's not really clear, because it could be confusing, can be confusing, is for all the technology that's coming our way, right? We're obviously gaining a lot, because it's not even a little, it's a lot. But is there anything that we're losing? So basically the question is, for all of the advances that have come our way, are we giving anything up for everything that we're gaining? Let's dive in. Let's check this out. Let's analyze this. We're going to look at a couple of different cameras and we're going to talk about 7 different possible ways that we have lost something for the technology that we have gained in the world of photography. Number 1, the camera as a piece of art. Ooh, this is a tough one, right? Because it's going to draw some debate and I'm ready for it. So back in the day, right, it can be very subjective, especially if you come from a place like I did where I shot film for 20 years, right? When you look at a camera like this, I have so many cameras that are collectibles like this. Look at this beautiful camera, right? These cameras were a work of art. When you owned one of these cameras, the heft of this is amazing, right? It's metal, there's no plastic in here. Even the lenses were mostly metal. So what I want to show you is, listen to this. I want to get as close as I can to the mic. I should step up and do this, but you know, this will be close enough. It's beautiful, isn't it? The sound, just everything about it. I'm hoping there's no film in here. So these cameras were in your hand, a work of art, and you appreciated them for what you were holding, right? These things were just absolute beauties, right? And the cameras I collect are all functional. Let me try to get in here so you can see, right? These are just absolutely beautiful. Now this one needs a cleaning. It's one of the ones that I purchased recently and it can use a cleaning outside, inside, and then the lens probably has to be taken apart and I put them in special solutions and then I put it all back together and it comes out brand new. But the point here is not just the heft, it's the beauty, it's the mechanics, right? These cameras were a piece of art. Now, and you took care of them because of that, right? You took care of them because of that. You kept them clean, you didn't throw them around. Then you get into something like this. Now don't get me wrong, this is my camera and I love my Canon 5D Mark III. This is an amazing camera, right? I've shot, I don't know, over 50 weddings with this thing, maybe 50 weddings. And who knows how many other events I've shot with this, airplanes, all kinds of things, right? But look at this, right? This is a plastic behemoth. Now, is it cheap? No, it's not. It was $3,200 brand new and it's heavy. It's magnesium alloy, some type of magnesium alloy metal surrounded by plastic and rubber, right? So it feels like a heavy plastic and rubber beast, right? It's a DSLR, it's not a mirrorless. The new mirrorless cameras look a lot like this, unless you're getting into Fujifilm. They tend to be a little more squared and metallic. And then you get into Fujifilm digital cameras that are trying to keep the retro vibe. Look at this beautiful thing. This is the X100 6. Look how it's a digital camera, right? But you're holding this in your hand. It has all the knobs and dials, just like the film camera I just showed you. No wide lever, right? Because there's no film. But look at the beauty of this thing, right? So Fujifilm is trying to take us back into the world where a camera was a piece of art. And this is absolutely beautiful. And now Nikon is doing it, right? And I hope more camera companies do stuff like this. They bring back a look that makes you want to take the camera out. When I'm hanging this from my neck for my shoulder, people ask me, is it a film camera? Because film is back. And they say, is that a film camera? And I tell them, no, it's actually a digital camera. And I let them hold it. And they're like, oh my God, this is absolutely beautiful. It has the rangefinder here, which you can use, right? Or you can look through the lens. I mean, it's just a gorgeous camera. So that's number one. We've lost the ability to view our cameras as a piece of art. Now, many photographers are going to look at this and say, you know what? Blow you. I don't care. I'm here to do a job. I don't care what my camera looks like. Well, if that's what you're here for in photography, I can't argue with you, right? You're not wrong. You're going to look at your camera, something like this, or anything that you're holding. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It could be a Hasselblad. It could be a beautiful modern piece of art, whatever it is. But you don't care what it looks like because it's doing the job. I get it. I do. But for 90% of us, that's not the case. Maybe 80% of us. We actually care about what the cameras look like, right? I don't run around shooting events anymore. I shoot stuff that I want and I sell it on my website. So for me, having a camera that pleases me, that makes me want to shoot, and I have so many different film cameras and I like to take different ones out on different days. Let me see if I can get this again. Here we go. Right? So this is one, and I'm going to take, not this one, I'm taking one out this weekend to put a roll of film through it, and then I can do a review on the camera, the lens, and so people know if they want to buy these or not, right? But these things were a work of art, and they felt like a work of art in your hand, and you took care of them because of that. The new DSLRs, I know people that have had one for 5-6 years, never have taken them in for any maintenance. These cameras, you used to take them in all the time to get them cleaned and looked at to make sure they were good, because people cared, right? People cared for their film cameras. Look at these straps. This is like a strap from the 70s or 80s, right? I can't really, people were into these funky straps. I'm keeping everything the way it was. This is original, so there you have it. I probably beat that horse to death. The second one is no need to think. Basically, it's all about volume. You can hold a modern mirrorless camera like this one, for example, even though it's beautiful, and I can hold that button down and I can take 20 frames per second, or whatever the camera does, 14 frames per second. The new ones do R5 and the Nikon, I'm forgetting all the nomenclatures because I'm drawing a blank here, like the Sony Alpha 1 and the Nikon Z9, right? They all do phenomenal burst rates. And you know, if that's what you're into and that's what you need for your job, then you have no choice, right? But it's gonna look like this, right? It's gonna look like this, and it's gonna take a lot of pictures, and it's the run and gun, or gun and run, however you want to do it. It's that mentality, right? You take a bunch of pictures, then you come and you sit down and you analyze them and you see if any of them are good. When you were taking film and you had a roll of 24 exposures, film was expensive, so you didn't buy a whole lot of them. You may take 2 on a trip. Most of the times I took 1, and it was either 24 exposures or 36, and you made it work. And you took a picture, right? You took a picture, so let me wind it, right? And then you wound the camera and you looked through the camera and you had to compose your next shot, and you had to ask yourself, do I really need this shot? Is the previous shot too similar because I don't want to waste the film? You had to think, right? Many times we had a light meter if the camera didn't have one built in. If it did have a light meter built in, then we were asking questions like, do I expose for the light? Do I expose for the shadows? And if you don't know what this means, then you've probably started shooting on a digital camera, digital mirrorless camera even, and the concept is not really as important to you because the camera does a lot. And we're going to get into that topic later, but you need to go back and read what that means. Exposing for the shadows, exposing for the light, you get a totally different picture. So less need to think. I'm not going to say no need to think, but less need to think with all the modern digital stuff, because it just does so much for you and it shoots so quickly as opposed to film cameras and even the older DSLRs, like something like this, right? Which if you were lucky, you got five frames per second or something like that, maybe 7. And just to finish off that category, We're looking at a topic now that's kind of looking like more technology means less creativity, because the camera's doing so much more. And now cameras have AI. They've been in auto mode for a long time, right, where they do things for you. Smartphones, for example, everybody's a photographer. Everybody carries one of these things around, and it's good because it opens photography up to more people. More people can capture more memories. But we're going to get into that in a second because it's not always good. Number 3, right? I call it shoot fast, forget fast. What's happening now is we are very quick to use our phones, for example. Most people, I would say roughly 80% of, using the Pareto principle, 80% of the people are using their phone, right? And what that's doing is people are shooting everything, right? I think about my daughter, for example. She shoots and shoots and shoots and shoots, and everything is on her phone until it doesn't fit anymore, and she has to start deleting. It's funny how she doesn't think about putting things on her computer. She just thinks about deleting to make more space to carry more stuff on the phone. And what I do from the photography perspective is I'll shoot pictures on this camera, any camera that has a card, a memory card. The first thing I do when I get home is I put the pictures on my computer, get them off the card, right? And we've lost that with phones, and now some people are losing it with cameras. I've seen people with 256 gigs in their camera, and they just shoot and shoot because they're shooting JPEG. Can you imagine? They probably can get 10,000 pictures in there, and they just shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot, and the camera holds the pictures and they never go anywhere. So shoot fast, forget fast. Back in the day, I had to walk around with a little pad and a pen, and I would have to take notes if I wanted to, see what the pictures came back like, and then note to myself, like, this worked and this didn't work. Why did it work and why didn't this work? Well, let me look at what I wrote down. Oh my gosh, I see what I did wrong, right? Now you get all that metadata in the pictures, right? You can look at it on the computer, so it's not as big of an issue, but that's what I mean about shooting fast and forgetting fast. There's no deliberate shooting anymore. The next topic is computer versus machine, right? This, to me, right, the newer ones had a chip, right, and had auto exposure and stuff, but the older ones did not. This, to me, is a machine, right? You look at it's very manual, right? You had to do everything by hand. You had to wind the film by hand, right? When you were done, this is what you did, right? You had to wind the film back to the canister. If I opened it, you had to open the door. You had to load the film. It was just a very manual process, right? So computer versus machine. This was a machine, this is a computer, right? The problem with owning a computer is that every 3 or 4 years, they become outdated. My Canon F1, which this is not, this is a Konica. My Canon F1, the new version, I had that camera, I shot it for 19 years. Film camera, there was no need to update. Canon then went to the autofocus. That was a manual focus. And I shot it for 19 years because it was a machine, right? This was outdated in 4 years after it came out. There was a new one, and this went from, the cameras went from, my 10D went from 6 megapixels. This 5D Mark III has, I believe, 24 or 23 megapixels. And then the, I think there was a version of this that had 50 megapixels, right? So huge jumps, right? So if you get the news that the 50 megapixel is coming out and you're shooting with the 23 megapixel, you feel like, oh my gosh, that's a huge jump, right? I'm falling behind. If I want more resolution, if I want bigger pictures, I want to have to update to the 50 megapixel. Well, Canon 5DS, that's what you have to buy if you wanted the 50 megapixel. And of course, everything was more expensive, right? With film was film. If the film kept getting better, you just stuck better film in your camera, but the camera was a camera. All it did was open the aperture for you on the lens and record the image on the film. It was very simple. And I compare this to like a Tesla versus a Ferrari. A Tesla, you get a box, and I'm not saying what's right or wrong, whatever suits you is fine. I'm just making a comparison. A Tesla, you get a screen, an LCD screen with 4 wheels, and it feels very, I don't know, what's the word? Gosh, I can't think of a word right now. Kind of clinical and cold, right? You get a Ferrari, the car's handmade, the engine's built by hand. you know, it's just a different concept. And I know the prices are different. We're not talking about that, but one is a machine and one is a computer, right? And you can start the car from your, you know, and I'm sure you can do it with Ferraris now, but stick shift versus paddles, right? Computer versus manual, so versus a machine. So it's that concept, right? The machine just feels in your hand more deliberate. You have to think about what you're doing. The computer kind of runs itself. That's basically it. And remember, when we think about this, right? Photography is about remembering, not about capturing. There's a difference. And when you shoot a roll of 24, and then you have to wait for the roll to come back, right? From processing a couple of weeks, you're thinking about those pictures for a couple of weeks. It's different, right? You're remembering. You tend to look at those pictures years later and you go, oh my gosh, I remember exactly, because there was so much attention spent on taking those pictures and waiting for them. I've shot things, I look at them 10 years later on digital cameras and I can't remember what that was. I know it was a party, I see the people, was it the birthday or was it an anniversary, or I can't quite remember what it was. There's just that concept of you're capturing more, but here you're remembering more, even though you're capturing less. I hope that's kind of clear. Maybe it's just me and I'm crazy. Number 5 is kind of interesting. What we're talking about here is perfection, right? As cameras get better and better, as the resolution gets higher, as the noise is improved, right? Less noise, because we used to call it grain, but it's noise now. And as the noise gets better, the pixels capture better quality. There are more pixels. What's happening is we're headed towards perfection. And what that means is that one camera company is trying to give you perfection, another camera company is trying to give you perfection. The pictures all start diverging into the same thing, right? They're basically starting to look the same, because the goal of every camera company is to give you the best version of what you're seeing in front of you, right? So back in the day, these cameras had different coatings on the lenses. One camera company invented one coating, another camera company invented another coating to reduce glare and all that stuff, right? And one coating tended to be a little greenish, another one had magenta, another one had yellow. So the pictures had different hues, right? And it gave your pictures character. Now, was it great? Well, you could put different filters on there to remove some of those colors, right? And kind of make everything neutral. But even then, it was never completely neutral. So whatever camera line you had was going to give you a personality in your pictures. And we lived with it. It wasn't something good or bad. It was what the technology was doing, so nobody complained. It was better to grab a memory than grab no memory, even if the memory was slightly hued in a different direction, right? Now, as cameras are getting better and better and better and better, all the camera companies are converging into one spot. And it's basically perfection, right? You're going to get exactly what you see. It's cool for landscapes, it's cool for faces, it's cool for a lot of things. But what's happening now, as we're getting into the 50, 60 megapixel, 100 megapixel, like my Fuji GFX 100S, 100 megapixel camera, right? What happens is the perfection starts to reveal imperfections, and that's the name of this category. Perfection reveals imperfection. Because you take a picture of me, now you can see my pores and hair follicles and all the zits and little, you know, everything, right? Things that you don't need to see. Back in the day when we were shooting these things, film was the equivalent of about a 20 megapixel sensor. That's what a 35 millimeter film was. And 120 film was about 40 megapixels. And the lenses, some of those lenses weren't resolving those megapixels, right? And even if the lens was really sharp, they still didn't equate to some of the sharpness that we have today. So the faces tended to be a little softer. That's why there's magic in taking an old lens and putting it on a new digital camera. There's a magic that I can't explain. I shoot it like that all the time. I'm going to do a video just to show you guys what it looks like, right? To compare like a regular digital shot with a digital lens made for that digital camera, and then the same model or face shot with that same digital camera, but an old vintage 70s or 60s or 50s lens. You're going to see the difference, and it's absolutely beautiful. So that's the thing. Perfection reveals imperfection, and too much perfection just starts to reveal too many imperfections, and you end up spending hours on the computer removing that stuff that you just don't want to see. Number 6, camera mechanisms back in the day required the photographer to be present. I kind of threw that into one of the other categories that I just mentioned. You know, a camera like this required you to be present, right? You had to think very carefully. You even had to carry a light meter many times, right? And I think what we did was we traded our time. Now, what does that mean? Back then, I had to think before taking the picture, right? Each picture, I had to measure the light, whether it's through the camera or through a meter that was handheld. I had to think about what aperture I wanted. I had to think about, you know, all that stuff, right? Sometimes the speed was important, so I started with that. Sometimes the aperture was important, so I started with that. The ISO was the ISO. It was whatever film I put in the camera, right? And it was called ASA, not ISO. And it was just very deliberate, and you had to think about each picture, right? Now what happens is we've traded that time. Now I sit at home and I spend an hour going through my menus, thinking about the trip I'm going to take and how I want to set the camera up for that trip, right? Now there are custom settings, and people do that as well, right? But you still have to make sure that, because there are differences. You go to one part of the country or one part of the world, even things like landscapes are going to be different, right? So you want to go through your custom settings and tweak things, or add another custom setting. So my point is that I can spend an hour before a shoot going through menus, or I can spend a minute, you know, or 2 minutes adjusting each shot, and there's 24 or 36 shots, so a roll of 36 is going to take me an extra 30 minutes, 40 minutes, right? It ends up being the same. So we've kind of traded our time one for the other, right? Before you had to adjust for every shot, think about each shot. A lot of consciousness had to take place before each shot. Now you adjust the camera and then you go out and you just shoot, right? Running gun. I had an incident where I went to Canada with 5 rolls of film and I came back with 4 because one of the rolls of film I put in there and the film never caught on. So every picture I was taking and winding the camera for the next shot, it wasn't winding. So I was basically shooting nothing. And then when I realized I was already at 37 or 38, I thought, uh-oh, I wound because I was naive. Instead of just taking the film out, because I realized that it had never caught, I wound the film and then I lost it, right? Because I couldn't pull the little thing back out again, it disappeared. And if you've shot film, you know what I'm talking about, right? I couldn't have brought one down here and shown you. So those are the things that used to happen. We had those types of accidents, and those accidents taught you. They made you grow. I never did that again. Did it once, right? At that point, every time I wound, when you wind the camera, you make sure that this guy on this side is spinning. When I wind here, this thing is supposed to spin, right? Because the film goes from one end to the other, right? From here to here. So actually from here to here. So I'm winding and this thing needs to be spinning. If it's not spinning, the film never caught. So at that point, from that day on, every time I loaded film and I wound a couple times, I looked to see if the spool was turning. And if it wasn't, I knew the film hadn't caught, right? You only make those mistakes once, but you learn. Now, you know, everything is taken care of for you. So less learning needed. Less learning needed when it comes to the mechanical part, more learning needed when it comes to the computer part, because cameras now have easily like 60 pages of menus, and it's mind-boggling how much stuff they stick in there. And last but not least, number 7. Photos brought families together. When you shot a roll of whatever, 24, 36, you came home, you took the film out, you ran to the store before they closed, you dropped it off, it was ready the next day. You came home and your family gathered around you and everybody looked at the pictures and everybody was excited. And some people would say, oh, I want that picture, right? And you would give it to them. And then you have to go take the film back and make some more copies because you gave some of your pictures away. And that was a beautiful, beautiful process. You put them in an album. The album sat on a shelf, and every once in a while on a rainy day, when the family was bored or didn't have much to do, you pulled an album out and everybody sat and looked at the pictures, and you passed a few albums around and everybody laughed or cried, depending on what you were looking at. And if you missed somebody who passed, then everybody sobbed. And it was just an amazing experience that we've lost. We've lost a lot of this. And, you know, I'm never going to complain about technology. I love technology. I love DSLRs. I use them heavily. And in the world of digital mirrorless, I use them heavily as well. But I'm still using film for these reasons, because I don't want to lose all of this, right? We've lost some stuff by gaining technology, and I can very easily go back and shoot film and just get some of that stuff back. I don't have to completely lose it. The funny thing is, today, more people see photos than ever, because Instagram, YouTube, whatever, right? Facebook, whatever it is. More people see photos, and somehow photos mean less. They mean less than they ever did, because we're drowned by photos, and every picture is prettier than the previous ones. There's a ton of AI performed on pictures. So we take more and more pictures every day, and for some reason they mean less every day. Today with AI, we can see images of things that never existed. Or we can see images with things that were removed from pictures. It just depends, right? We can remove things, or we can take pictures. We can create pictures of things that don't exist. So it's starting to get really interesting. I enjoy a lot of that, and I use it for example, for my thumbnails for YouTube. I have AI create images for me of people that don't exist. It takes a summary of faces from the internet, makes it into a face holding a camera, right? I can ask for a dinosaur in the background, and it's cool for the YouTube thumbnail, but these things don't exist, right? And I don't care. It's for entertainment. But pictures that I sell, pictures that I enjoy viewing, I want those to be real. I don't want those to be created by AI. This is a breakthrough in photography. We've reached an era where amazing breakthroughs are occurring, right? And I know more people than ever that are trying to leave photography because they feel there's no need for them, because AI is taking over, automation is taking over. And I try to convince them that's not the case, right? The work they do is authentic, and that means something, right? But more photographers than ever now are considering leaving photography, and that's why you're seeing cameras for sale so much, because they're buying them and they're seeing they can't compete with people with phones, because people with phones can shoot faster, they can shoot more, it's easier, right? And then you put filters through them and you make these pictures look fantastic. So they're wondering, what is the purpose of walking around with something like this? You know, and then I have to edit everything more because the camera doesn't have any intelligence like my phone does. So photographers that I know are thinking about leaving photography, and many of them are going back to this. They're going back to film, at least part-time, if not full-time. So I definitely do it part-time because I still enjoy my DSLR, and all my digital cameras I enjoy very, very much, whether they look this sexy or they just look plainer, but I enjoy them a great deal. So my point is, do both, right? You can enjoy all of the technology today, and you can still be conscious-minded when you go out shooting, even though you're shooting a digital camera. Slow down a little. This camera is a fixed lens, so that's a way to slow down, because you have to make the picture fit into your lens. So now you have to think differently, and if it doesn't fit, do I step back, do I step forward, or do I just get something different because I'm not going to get what I need, right, or what I wanted. So that's a way to slow down. Put a fixed lens on your camera and go out shooting for a while, right? Learn it. There's a lot of ways to do that. We can do a whole video on that, but just keep in mind that we have lost a few things with all the influx of technology. It's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just a different thing. So learn to take both, right? If you can buy yourself a cheap film camera with a nice 50mm lens, go out and enjoy shooting film. It'll slow you down, it'll make you more methodic, and your pictures are going to mean more to you. Remember that. So that's it for today. If this video was entertaining, if you learned something, please like, subscribe, and consider buying me a coffee down below in the link. I use that money to buy gadgets that I do reviews on. And other than that, love you guys. Till the next video, take care of yourselves. I'll see you again. Ciao for now.
Oh, it's so warm. Oh, whoa, look, we should get this.
You know, we have a dog.
You have a dog?
Well, we're taking care of the dog for a week.
Can we get a Taco Bell, please?
Oh my God, I gotta finish this.